Hello and welcome to English in Brazil. I'm Carina, your English teacher. E hoje eu vou falar sobre 5 palavras que a gente aprende em inglês, que eu tenho certeza que você conhece e usa, mas que talvez os norte-americanos acabam não usando tanto em contextos informais. Bom, primeiramente é super importante dizer que eu não tô falando aqui de erro, tá? Todas as palavras estão corretas, tá? Mas eu já tenho um vídeo assim que eu gravei há uns 3 anos, vou deixar o link aqui no card. E eu gosto muito de aprender sobre a questão de language use, né? A gente sabe as palavras, mas será que elas são realmente usadas? Será que tem outra expressão que é mais comum? Então é sobre isso que a gente vai falar hoje. E para isso eu entrevistei 3 professores do Cambly com diferentes idades, né? Um professor com 25 anos, um professor com 36 anos e uma professora que é mais velha do que eles, mas que eu não vou mencionar aqui a idade, porque seria deselegante mencionar a idade de uma lady. Mas pra gente ver também se teria essa diferença na questão da idade. O Cambly é uma plataforma na qual você pode fazer aulas particulares de inglês com falantes nativos do idioma, como esses que vão aparecer aqui no vídeo. Você pode usar essas aulas de conversação para falar, por exemplo, sobre a sua carreira, e você pode, inclusive, digitar na área de busca a sua área de trabalho. Então, por exemplo, eu trabalho com marketing, você pode procurar professores que tenham esse conhecimento em marketing para que você consiga conversar sobre a sua área, sobre a sua carreira, e às vezes até algum coach de carreira mesmo que você pode encontrar lá dentro do Cambly. E nesse mês, eles estão com o Flashback do Cambly, com descontos de até 60%. Essa promoção relâmpago desse super desconto aí vale só até sexta-feira, dia 16 de dezembro. Então clica no link aqui da descrição para você ser direcionado para essa promoção pelo meu link e não deixa pro ano que vem, viu? Começa agora mesmo a investir no seu conhecimento. A primeira palavra é prefer. Será que eles usam I prefer ou eles têm uma outra expressão mais usada?
Oh, that's a good question. I prefer to do that. Let's say I'm talking and someone says, "Do you like going to the gym?" And you say, "I prefer going on runs." Maybe, but I'd say maybe we don't say that. We'd say, "I'd rather." I'd rather. So you're right. I don't think we use that as much.
Can you give us some examples of I'd rather?
Yeah, like would you like to, or do you like to ski? And then I would say, "I'd rather snowboard." Right? Instead of "I prefer to snowboard." It does sound a little bit more proper and fancy, but to a native speaker, I'd rather.
I think it sounds more formal. I would say I'd rather, you know, hey, Doug, do you want to go to McDonald's? Nah, I'd rather go to Burger King. Yeah. So I'd rather, I would surely say I'd rather than I prefer. Yeah.
It's not exactly a common phrase to use. It's more of, in a different kind of setting, not in a casual setting. But it's okay if you do. You can say, "I prefer this," or "I prefer that." But usually you would say, "I would rather have this," or "I like that," rather than prefer.
Então todos concordaram que eles usariam muito mais I'd rather do this ou I'd rather have this do que o I prefer. Mas lembrando que não tá errado, tá? Pode continuar usando o seu I prefer aí, é só um vídeo sobre percepção do que é mais usado ou não, tá? Mas nada tá errado. E a segunda é mother e father. Será que eles usam essas palavras entre amigos e em família?
And yeah, you're right. We don't necessarily use those too often. Mom and dad. So what's your mom's name? What's your dad's name? But it's never, what is your mother's name? It's a little bit more fancy. But once again, if it's said, everybody knows. You could say, "This is my mother and this is my father." In fact, though, sometimes you will hear somebody say "my father," referring to their dad who has left. And so sometimes it could be somebody who's got an issue with the parent, not wanting to claim him in an intimate role like your dad. So they would say something like father, and sometimes it actually has a more distant meaning than an intimate meaning. Dad, I would say, is more intimate.
That is totally new to me. Interesting.
Okay.
Because dad is more effective, so that's why people don't want to say my dad. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, exactly.
I almost never use either of these words. Yeah. I would say if I'm talking to like a new student in English, maybe someone who's like level 1, I might use these words because maybe it sounds more familiar to them. But in an informal situation, I would almost never use these words.
Now, this is different, I think, for different parts of the US. Maybe it would be more common for different areas. And again, this depends on which context, because I may say something referring to my mother and father, but I don't call them mother, father, unless I'm being kind of silly. I will say mother, but usually it's mom. And then when children are younger, it's mommy, mama.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's suppose you're at a party now and your mom is with you. Would you say, hi, so this is my mom, or this is my mother?
Okay, so when you're introducing or when you're referring to them, yes, you can say mother. That's common. This is my mother, or this is my mom. But if I'm addressing her, I wouldn't typically say mother.
Então aqui a professora Amber que deu ali uma explicação um pouco maior, que eu poderia falar this is my mother em vez de this is my mom, mas ela nunca chamaria mother, né? Quem assistiu Bates Motel lembra que o Norman Bates falava mother, mas era super estranho, assim, porque ele era estranho. Mother. Mas aqui tem também uma questão da idade, né? Então ela foi a única que discordou. Os outros dois mais jovens falaram que eles não apresentariam a mãe como this is my mother, falariam this is my mom mesmo. Mas enfim. E a palavra children? Será que eles falariam I have 3 children? Ou the children are playing at the yard? Ou eles usariam kids, talvez?
I'd say kids. Yeah, I have 3 kids. It's one of those things interchangeable, but preferably just to be quicker and say less syllables, you would say kids. I have 3 kids. Quick, to the point, and it sounds natural and native. More native than children, I would say.
Wow, so much of the time that I talk in English, I'm teaching English, so I use the word children a lot. Boy, I use kids more. I don't have kids. I wouldn't say I don't have children. But maybe if I'm getting to know a person, I might say, do you have any children? Something like that. But, an informal conversation, I would say kids for sure.
Okay. The kids are playing at the yard, not the children are playing at the yard.
Yeah, kids, definitely kids, yeah.
Yeah, it's common. I tell my students all the time, I have 5 children.
You have 5 children?
I do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have 2.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. So absolutely. Children, kids, it's interchangeable.
What about arrive? Esse verbo que significa chegar. A gente aprende esse verbo, né? To arrive, chegar. Mas será que eles usam esse verbo no dia a dia?
And so, I'm trying to think of the context. But I think we say that word. Where I'm at now, they say reach. He reached. But you could say he arrived. He arrived at this time. But yeah, that's another one. We may say got there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I got there at 5. I got there at 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of, it does sound a little bit more native, or forced to say he arrived. But if you were just talking to somebody and say, yeah, he actually got here at 5 o'clock, it implies arrived without saying it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Interesting. And I remember one of the first times I think it was the first time I went to the US. I went there for work, and a girl asked me, what time did you get in? And I said, excuse me, get in. What time did you get in? And she started speaking louder, but actually I couldn't understand the question.
That's really funny.
And then it was, what time did you arrive, right?
Yeah. What time did you get in?
I'm curious. What do you think about this? I've thought about this verb a lot. What do you think about this?
I don't think you guys use it as much as we think you do. I think arrive for us. Get to.
Get there. We would
get
say.
there, get to a place, or even get to a place. I think that's what you probably use. Yeah.
I got to the stadium, right before the game started. Okay. But if it's clear what the context is, they may say, hey, what time did you get to the stadium? Oh, I got there at noon. Right. But arrive. No, this is one. I teach a lot of Spanish speakers, so I use arrive when I talk to a Spanish speaker, because I think they'll understand it more. But amongst native speakers, we would say get to or get there. Yeah,
it's not uncommon to use. Usually, if we're talking to somebody and talking about our arrival time, I will say we will be there in 15 minutes. Usually, I don't say I will arrive in 15 minutes. It's not wrong. It's just not as commonly said. And again, maybe it could depend on different regions in the US. But for me, I don't commonly say I will arrive unless I'm intentionally trying to be more formal, less casual.
De novo aqui, só a Amber acabou discordando um pouco. E a gente também tem que pensar em variações regionais, né? Ela mora em West Virginia e os outros professores são mais do centro do país. Não sei, talvez isso tenha a ver também. E eu selecionei outro verbo que eu não vejo tanto eles usando, mas que a gente aprende, que é to receive.
To get something. So, or got, past tense. So, I got it from my mom, or I received it from my mom, or to get, I'll get it from my mom later. Right. So, yeah, to receive, probably less used in those kind of casual contexts.
It's kind of the same thing, we'd probably say get usually, I got your message. Yeah. I received your message, if I'm talking maybe to my boss or something like that. But for sure we would say get or got. Yeah, really. I can't think of any other options other than get that we would use often.
That's a common thing to say, to receive. I received a call from a telemarketer. Yeah, it's common.
Would you say I received an email or I got an email this morning?
Either one.
Either one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Typically, if you use receive, it may be a little more formal. Probably if I'm talking to my family, I would say I got some mail this morning. But saying receive is not extremely formal. So it's fine to use that.
De novo aqui, só a Amber que acabou discordando, né? Ela disse que diria I received an email, mas eu vejo muito mais as pessoas falando I got an email. Mas, de novo, gente, não tem certo e errado aqui. There's no right or wrong. A gente tá só falando sobre uso mesmo. Fica à vontade para usar receive, que não tá errado, prefer, que não tá errado. Mas eu amo aprender sobre essas variações, tanto que esse não é o primeiro vídeo desse estilo que eu faço. Então, clica aqui para ver outras palavras que eu selecionei nesse vídeo. Por exemplo, so, how are you? You're welcome. Será que essas expressões são realmente usadas? Dá uma olhada aqui no vídeo e me conta aqui nos comentários se alguma dessas palavras te surpreendeu. Se inscreve no English Brazil and I'll see you next video.